Welcome to the channel. Today we are going to look at the 5 advanced landing grounds that were built on the Romney Marsh in 1943. Advanced landing grounds were temporary advanced airfields constructed by the Allies during World War II, during the liberation of Europe. They were built in the UK prior to the invasion and thereafter in northwest Europe from the 6th of June 1944 to VE Day, Victory in Europe Day. RAF Brenzett was established as an advanced landing ground during 1943. 2 crossed Sommerfeld track metal runways were initially built, eventually followed by 5 blister hangars, with accommodation for personnel being limited to a tented camp. Locals tended to refer to the airfield as Ivy Church, after the name of the nearest village. The first unit to arrive at Brenzett was number 122 Squadron on the 14th of September 1943. But this was only to relieve pressure on the nearby airfield of Kingsnorth, which needed urgent runway relaying. Its Spitfires stayed for just 2 days, and the airfield lay largely unused until the arrival of 133 Wing during 8th to 10th of July 1944. The 3 squadrons of this wing, namely 129, 306 and 315, the last 2 of them Polish, flew North American Mustang 3s to operate against the V-1 flying bombs, and they destroyed a significant number of these missiles. Other less routine missions included escorting Bristol Beaufighters on shipping strikes near Norway, while the wing also became involved in Operation Market, the airborne element of Operation Market Garden, escorting transport aircraft and gliders to Arnhem. At RAF Newchurch, the first squadrons of Spitfires arrived in July 1943 and were used as escorts for American bombers based in East Anglia. But within 3 months, the ALG was closed for upgrading. It reopened in April 1944 with squadrons of Tempests, Spitfires and Typhoons. These were used for air cover during D-Day, and later in June 44 the Tempests were ordered to deal with the new threat of the V-1 flying bombs, the Doodlebugs. The first Doodlebug shot down by the Newchurch wing was on the 16th of June, and the final tally was 638 V-1s. The V-1 was history's first mass-produced cruise missile. Each could carry a 1-ton warhead nearly 160 miles at a cruising speed of 400 miles per hour. Nearly 10,000 V-1s were launched from sites in northern France over an 80-day period, beginning in June 1944. Targets included London, as well as other cities in southern England. At the peak of the campaign, more than 100 rockets were hitting Britain a day. Casualties climbed to 22,000, with more than 6,000 fatalities, and more than 1 million buildings were destroyed. V-1 rockets were neither reliable nor accurate. Of the 10,000 fired at London, only about 2,000 actually reached the city. In fact, as many as 2,000 V-1s malfunctioned and crashed shortly after takeoff. Yet despite the flaws, the missiles were still a viable alternative to conventional bombing. Doodlebugs consumed less fuel than warplanes, but caused as much damage to London as did the Blitz. Also, the V1 threat kept hundreds of Allied warplanes and anti-aircraft guns busy protecting the British Isles. Aircraft and guns that could have been used to greater effect on the front lines. Dry weather advanced landing fields were constructed by a single battalion at a favourable site in flat terrain in 1 to 3 days, including time for reconnaissance. At less favourable sites, where more clearing and grading were required, or all-weather fields, which also needed additional infrastructure, the time varied from 3 to 10 days. Based on the experience obtained in the North African and Italian campaigns, fighter groups required an airfield 120 feet wide by 3,600 feet long, and fighter bomber groups required fields 120 feet wide by 5,000 feet long. Medium bomber groups required 120 feet wide by 6,000 feet long runways. Instead of using rough, unimproved dirt strips, engineers used surfacing material necessary to strengthen the soil to support the weight of the aircraft, and as a measure of insurance against the wet weather. Airfields were initially single runway landing strips, which were laid down east to west, unless local conditions dictated a different runway direction. ALGs laid in the UK were of Sommerfeld tracking, a form of stiffened steel wire mesh. Refuelling and rearming fields consisted of a runway and an aircraft marshalling area on each end of the runways. It was designed to provide an airfield near the front lines upon which aircraft based in the rear areas could land, be refueled, rearmed, and take off again on a mission without having to return to their home field in the rear. Also, they could be used for dispersal or for when services other than refueling or rearming was required. These airfields could be expanded into advanced landing grounds by the addition of dispersal and other station facilities. Generally, if an R&R strip was built, it would be sited wherever possible with a view to further expanding it later into an advanced landing ground.